What's the creepiest thing that's ever happened to you? So I was 9 at the time, sitting in my parents' car in a parking lot of Kmart. Me, being my inquisitive self, I would look around the lot at other cars and the goings and comings. Soon enough, a red pickup truck pulled up beside me with a quite disheveled-looking man sitting behind the wheel. I just stared at him because he had a look of great sadness within his eyes. He stared blankly at the dash for a while. After some time, he starts yelling and then breaks down into tears. Immediately after breaking into tears, he reaches into the glove compartment and pulls out a pistol. He checks the magazine and points it into the roof of his mouth and starts screaming names of his kids, I guess. He does this for a few more minutes until he realizes a 9-year-old boy is staring lockjawed at him. He just stares at me with the gun in his lap and then smiles and blows me a kiss. He left sometime after the staring contest. My dad came back from the store and asked why I looked so pale. I didn't say a word until we got home, and I immediately vomited into the toilet, feeling so nervous about the entire thing. Holy moly, I wonder if he went through with it or if you just randomly being there made him stop and reconsider. I broke up with the girl and told her no, I don't still want to be friends or talk to her or anything. 2 months later, she burned her house down so that I would talk to her again. She came up to me in school and told me that she did it because she missed me and wanted me back. I don't care if this happened long times ago. You start frickin' running now. My girlfriend is a sleepwalker. It only really comes on when she's incredibly exhausted or stressed out. We just come back from Tokyo, first night back in her bed. I got up to take a leak, and when I turned around, she was standing in the door, eyes semi-open but glazed over, face slack. She surprised me, but I thought she just needed to use the bathroom. But she just stood there and wouldn't let me pass until I spoke to her. Hey? We have to get out of here. They're coming for us. The hairs on the back of my neck immediately stood up. The way she said it was so cold and mechanical, it was like it wasn't even her voice. That's when I realized she was sleepwalking. Go back to bed. Okay. And she spun around and shuffled off to bed. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it was so creepy. It's like she was possessed. I didn't even get back into bed with her. I went into the living room and slept on the couch. AOL chat room when I was 15, some douche starts douching, insulting everyone. I found cyber fights entertaining back then, so I go with it. After a while, he tells me my address, full name, and a link with a picture of me on it from my old school's website that I didn't even know about, and said he's going to kill me. I machoed up saying bring it, and slept with a weapon handy, and still do. He never showed up as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure I'm still alive. This happened to me and a friend. She was on some goth vampire chat room and called some guy a F-face. Then he described where she were, what the house looked like, and said he could see us in the window, which we were actually next to. We were both so freaked out we didn't sleep. Nothing happened, but it was really creepy at the time. I still don't know how he was so accurate. When I was 17, I had to do a work-study program for a charity that dealt with retarded people in their 20s and 30s. I worked with a 34-year-old retarded man named Ryan. I spent 3 weeks training him to do simple person-to-person interactions so he could be a Walmart greeter or something. I came home after a session to find police at my house as well as ambulances in the driveway. The cops told me my mother was fine, but she had been attacked and cut on her right arm. It turns out that the police were called when Ryan couldn't be contacted. It turns out he had been masturbating to pictures of me. He wanted my picture to show his mom or something. And he had become obsessed to the point where he walked into my house when I was gone with a knife, probably to violate me. The most freaked out part of the story is that while he was obviously mentally disabled, it turns out that he wasn't mentally retarded, but rather posing as a retarded person to meet high school boys. A guy was arrested in Norman, Oklahoma for faking a severe mental handicap so he could get people to take care of him, feed him, change diapers, etc. so he could live out an adult baby fantasy. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. The band teacher at my high school hid in a towel room and masturbated to me and another guy showering just about every day until he was caught. When I was 15, I got a job at the local grocery store as a deli clerk. One day, this older guy, who was a semi-regular customer, apparently decided to give me a gift, one of those giant teddy bears you get as a prize at the Midway. It was really dirty, and there was a hole in between its legs into which he had placed a gigantic black corn cob. The store manager called the cops and banned the guy from the store, but it was weeks before I stopped looking over my shoulder on the way home. I lived in the Middle East when I was in high school, and one day I was walking home from school and this old Arab man in an old Mercedes pulled up like he was lost and rolled down his windows and leaned out like he was about to ask for directions. So I walked over and he asks me if I know if there's a massage parlor nearby. That immediately struck me as odd, so I said I didn't know and walked on, but he kept up with me and said that since there wasn't a massage parlor around, maybe I could give him a massage. I ignored him and started walking faster, and he starts offering me a lift home. I tell him to leave me alone and keep walking, but he just keeps following me, so I had to duck into the nearest house pretending it was mine and hid in their garden until I was sure the guy was gone, and then continue on my way home. I am still suspicious of men in old Mercedes to this day. I'm a man in an old Mercedes, don't hate. It was my 16th birthday and my stepmom and I went to go get massages. After filling out some paperwork, they told us that there were no available females to do our massages. I'm a girl. So we both said we would be okay with guys. Through the whole massage, the masseuse kept complimenting me and it was just generally awkward. He also asked how old I was, 16, and he said he was like 26. At the end of the massage, he asked me for my phone number. It was super creepy, but I didn't want to be rude, so I just said I didn't live in the state. A few weeks later, I get a bunch of missed calls on my phone with messages from the guy. He got my cell phone number off the release paperwork I filled out when we got to the massage place. I never returned any of his calls, but he continued to call me every so often for the next few months. While in college, I came back to my apartment one afternoon to find some girl I didn't know in my living room. This wasn't all that unusual, as my roommates often had visitors at all hours, and she said she knew at least one of them. After some casual banter, she announced she needed to go grocery shopping, and she offered to cook me dinner if I went with her and helped her out. She was kind of cute, so I decided to walk with her and see what happened. At the supermarket, she asked me what I wanted to eat, and then invited me to her place where she cooked a meal for us. After dinner, we fricked through the night into the wee hours. Taking a break from steamy times, we talked about random stuff. One of the things we talked about was a local guy our age who had apparently killed his parents and disappeared. The guy's whereabouts were at the time still unknown, and there was a massive police manhunt going on to locate him. Well, at one point, the girl said, "I don't think he did it." She sounded so sure of this that I asked her why she thought that, when all the news stories strongly suggested his guilt. To my shock, she said, "Because he is/was my boyfriend." I realized then that I was in the bed of the girlfriend of a murderer at large. I didn't sleep the rest of the night for fear that a killer was going to jump out of a closet and hack me to bits. The next morning, I politely excused myself and racked my brain the entire way back to my place about how and if I should distance myself from this person. On the one hand, she was attractive, cooked a nice meal, and seemed to want to frick me, a big plus. On the other hand, she might have a jealous boyfriend who liked to kill people. The if part was answered when I got to my apartment to find my roommates all gathered in the living room. They'd been wondering where I'd been. Turns out some girl had seen me on the street and followed me home a day or so before, then come back and more or less invited herself in. The girl they were talking about was the girl who I had spent the night with. So the girlfriend of a murderer at large had stalked me and seduced me. She confirmed this a couple days later when I finally worked up the nerve to talk to her again for the last time. The ex was found some weeks later. He had indeed killed his family and a couple more people along the way before he was captured. Movie-worthy. When I was about 9, I was outside in front of my apartments with my brothers 3 and 6. We were sitting on a blanket having a pretend picnic. We see this guy in a baby blue van drive by. At first we think nothing of it, but then he proceeds to drive by 3 or 4 more times. We notice he stops the van and he is staring at us. He waves us over to the van. I got freaked out and grabbed my brothers and went into the house and locked the door and told my mom what happened. Later on that night when we were watching the news, the guy we saw earlier was on the news for kidnapping a kid in our neighborhood. I am a female who worked at GNC a couple years back, and I had one kind of creepy encounter while I worked there. This 45 to 50-ish year old walks in, and I give the usual, "How can I help you?" yada yada. Well, the guy ends up giving me his entire life story on how he lost his wife and kids because of alcohol and how he's turning over a new leaf in life. Also, I was pretty sure he was high/drunk during this one-sided conversation. And it took forever for him to leave. About 2 hours after he leaves, the store phone rings, and my manager picks it up. Then he hands the phone to me. The same weirdo had memorized my name from my name tag and looked up the store phone number just to ask for me by name, tell me I was cute, and ask me to go to the pool at his health club with him. Keep in mind that I only looked about 16 at the time. I told him no thanks, obviously, and that I was leaving town forever, lol. My manager was more freaked out about it than I was, though. He thought it was my dad on the phone or something, but when he realized it was some old creep, he wouldn't let me close the store by myself for a while after that. My friend and I were downtown one day and decided to eat lunch at a crappy food court in some old mall. Most of the places were closed down except a Subway and a non-chain pizza place. We each ordered a slice of pepperoni and a fountain drink from the man behind the counter. The first thing that was weird was that he wasn't wearing a uniform, just plain clothes. The second thing that was off was that he charged us both two completely different prices, despite the fact that we each ordered the same thing. What we each paid was less than the listed price for our items on the menu. My friend and I laughed about it, eat our food, and go on with our day. Half an hour later, we both sit down in a hotel lobby and each end up falling asleep at roughly the same time and waking up a good hour later. We're both freaked out that we would each fall asleep for no reason and both noticed that we felt pretty crappy. A few hours later, we decided to get dinner at the Subway at the food court. As we enter, we noticed that there are two new freaked out looking people working at Pizza Place. They both are wearing uniforms. At the other exit of the food court on the opposite side, we see paramedics taking a gurney to an ambulance. Strapped to the gurney is the man that served us our pizza. A janitor was mopping up some kind of mess in front of the pizza place. We both have no clue what happened, and we were too weirded out to even want to know/ask the people at the pizza place what the heck had happened. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.